Thanks for joining me on Exploring Distant Worlds. In this episode, we're going to be looking at the transition from pre-warp to the early warp phase of the game. Obviously, getting warp drive is a key part of that. We're also going to be looking at designing some combat ships. There's going to be some scripted events that are going to be happening at the transition to warp. And then, if there's time, we'll be doing some exploring beyond Kerbis, building some new types of stations. And if you're new to the series, there's a playlist in the description below that can get you caught up on any episodes that you may have missed. I am going to be doing one thing different starting with this video from a format standpoint. If you look at the timeline at the bottom of the video, it's divided into sections. YouTube calls this a chapters feature. And basically, it's just to allow you, if you're looking for specific information about the game, a specific topic that I might be covering, you can go ahead and click through to whichever section has that information, and that allows you to skip over parts that you may be less interested in. So I'm hoping that'll be of use to some of you who are looking for more targeted viewing experience. Now in game time, it has been about 15 months since the end of the last episode. We're skipping forward some, and let's take a look at what's been going on. We have our Dire Impulse that's been doing most of the exploring. They are headed back. They're almost out of fuel. So they're headed back to refuel. 2 of the construction ships are already back. A 3rd one is coming. And then the 4th one just finished over here with the destroyer. So let's take a look what they told us about that. It's called the Decisive Warrior. Appears to be in good working order. We can disassemble it to gain a technology boost similar to what we got from the starfighters at the ruins. But we're going to skip that again, and we're going to use it for part of our fleet initially. We've got the treasure that we were gaining on board, and then also we have navigational directions to another planet. This one's gas giant Almanea 6. Of course, to investigate that location, we would need warp drive that we don't have. So, on the characters front, Isaf Sarabi, some interesting things here. They did get a quick success in their mission against the Dark Minerals, but we also know a couple of their traits. They gained the measured trait they already had Corrupt. It was just revealed to us. And, well, the combination isn't great. Corrupt basically means they suck at everything. Measured gives them some boosts to Psyops and Concealment. And so what we end up having is a spy that's good at concealment and bad at everything else. Maybe a deep cover assignment in the future? I don't know. But for now, they're going to hang out for counter-intel purposes. Got the usual population growth boosts to Zatara and Halan, and then Makasari, one of our scientists, got a decent little boost. Weapons research now up to 14% from 6%. So that's going to be excellent as well. And let's take a look at some of that research progress. Now, I'm spreading out quite a bit in the weapons, and I don't advise this as the right strategy to play with. But I'm doing it so that we can show the different weapon types during the course of this series, and you can see their strengths and weaknesses in practice. However, if you're playing for trying to win and, being more strategic about it, I would recommend 1 short range and 1 long range weapon system. We have the assault pods here, so we can use those to take over enemy ships. That's a lot of fun. I'll be definitely showing that at some point. We have the starfighters and the energy torpedo weapons that we were heading into in the last episode. And then we're going to be moving on to gravitic weapons and area weapons, a couple of new types that we don't have any of just yet. Of course, the warp field precursors research continues most of the way there. And on high-tech and industrial, we got the storage systems in. So that boosts our fuel cells from 55 to 65. They are still the same size, but they cost twice as much now. Still, well worth it unless you have a really good reason to not want that extra capacity. Cargo bays as well, up from 350 to 500 with the same size. And we have redesigned our designs to accommodate that. Then we've got the medical systems and the entertainment systems. We put those on our spaceport to boost happiness of Reese, and therefore also boost the amount that we can tax them. Transport systems is up next. Again, I'm not concerned about the troops, but the passenger compartments are going to be important for a base that we're going to want to build fairly soon. And then proximity sensors, information is always power, so we're going to be going with that after. Here's the core of our first military ship design, the frigate prototype. And why am I choosing a frigate anyway? Perhaps the escort role might be better? Well, I just don't think those are practical. When they're automated, they will be used typically to guard civilian freighters as they're flitting about on their transport missions or low level mining stations. In terms of guarding the freighters, if the freighters have warp capability, they're generally going to be able to warp out and get away from most types of danger they'll encounter. If they don't, then we're not going to have the numbers or especially the speed and firepower to really be able to protect them effectively. So I just don't like using the escorts really at all. Now, on some of the other more generically larger types of ship roles, destroyer, cruiser, etc., they suggest adding troop module components to these because these are typically going to be used, again, when automated, in more offensive fleet type of operations. And we're not looking for that. The frigates tend to be recommended to have quite a few by the game's help system, and when they're automated, they'll be used in patrolling systems or guarding high value targets, and that's kind of what we're going after here. We have invasion off, never flee. I just want them to defend with their lives whatever it is they're assigned to protect. So the HAB modules and life support here are up to 3 each so that we can hit our maximum ship limit on construction size. And we need to add some weapons to this. Now, I did mention before the beam weapons, but I'm actually not going to be using those this time because we have very weak engines still. We don't want to have to be maneuvering a long time to get into close enough range to use a short range weapon and meanwhile taking a bunch of damage. So I'm going to go with the Seeking Missile instead. You can see these have a range of 400. That's the highest range of any of the weapons we have at this point. And also their damage does not get reduced by distance. That is the distance to the target when they fire. Now, a lot of weapon systems do have that. The downside is, they don't fire that rapidly and they're not very potent, but I think that's worth accepting that for now. And you can also see the less effectiveness against armor. We'll do a more in-depth comparison of the weapon types when we get more of them available to us. So I'm just going to start with a couple of these, and I don't want to fill up the ship completely. I just want to get a basic structure in place, and then we'll add in warp components later on. So we're definitely going to want to have some more directional thrusters. Turning rate is going to be much more important as seconds count in combat than it was, for example, for the surveyor and engineer. Let's get some more thrusters on there. We'll want some fuel, at least enough to be over 100% system diameter. And let's definitely throw some armor on here because we do have that. So this isn't terrible, but I think I will throw on a couple more missiles. Maybe another one of these. A few thrusters. Okay, we'll start there. We'll add to it later. Now let's get, I think, half a dozen of these built. That should work. And then I want to get some fleets going, which are just basically, organize your military ships into a group for common goals. And if we open this up, well, there are no fleets available. There's lots of nice controls available to them. You can set their home colony. You can do various things with loading troops, find them in the galaxy. But we've got to get some going first. So we'll go to ships and bases. And here we can see all kinds of things. I mean, you can see everything in here. If we look at our spaceport, we can see all the different types of cargo that it has on it. Or if we were to look, for example, at the Decisive Warrior, the ship that we just finished repairing, we could take a look at the weapons that it has on it, a bunch of stuff we haven't seen before. We could even view the design on it. And, I mean, none of this stuff, other than the HAB and life support, there's very little else that we've even heard of before. Note that we can't build something this large. We would not be able to retrofit this or add a warp drive to it because it's bigger than we can build, and the technology is advanced beyond us. It's simply a use it as it is if you want to use it type of ship. So, given that, we are going to put the two derelicts that we captured together in one fleet. And then we'll put the frigates that we're about to build in another one. And we can do a variety of things here. You can just collect one, or select rather, one individually. If you want one further down, you can control click just that one. Or you can do shift to grab all of them in a row. We're going to take all of the frigates. We could add them to that fleet that we already had, but we're not going to do that. There we go. View fleet, and we go back to this screen. And now we can rename these, for example. Can rename individual ships as well on the previous screen. But I'm just going to call these the Reese Royal Guard. And then you will be Reese System Patrol. Just to give them a name for now. And then we want to proceed forward because we're waiting, will be, on our research to finish. Just got a nice pop-up in our happiness there. Well, this is a lie. We've constructed our first military ship, the Decisive Warrior. No, we didn't build it. We just repaired it. We can defend ourselves against threats. And we'll definitely want to do that. Okay, the Kerbis Dawn just finished what it was doing. So you can jump back with me to Reese, and I want you to refuel. Protection arrangement canceled. Let's talk about a new one. Okay, another happiness boost. That's actually a cheaper deal. I like that idea. Okay, meanwhile, we can give fleet orders right here. We'll just have our 2 derelicts. We are going to have you refuel back here. And our frigates are now complete. That's excellent. And I will just have you hang out at Reese as well. Okay, so back to dealing with the fact that we have better happiness now. Let's boost our taxes some. That's probably going to be too high. Yep, a little bit. That'll be nice. 31%. And let's see. I'm probably also going to... Where did I put... Yeah. You're refueling. So you were upgraded, but I didn't retrofit you. So why don't I take a moment and do that? We've got the time. I mean, we're going to want to do it again once we get warp capability, but all the more advanced items I put on there is great. And yeah, you're just kind of wimping along here now that you've run out of fuel, but you're almost back. So we'll be good. Now, of course, the Kerbis Dawn is not going to make it all the way back. And you... Nope, you're headed to the wrong station. Let's not do that. Let's make sure you're coming back here. So you got to be careful not to just tell them to refuel wherever if you don't want them to refuel wherever. You know, give them the precise orders that you're looking for. And we can see, you know, some of the civilians moving around. A bunch more of their ships up here. I can't make them come back here and be ready to retrofit. We're just going to have to, you know, wait for them to do their thing at their own pace. 2104. And where are we at here? Over 90%, so we're almost finished. Okay, gravitic weapons. So I think our next target will get better missiles. Okay, retrofitted the Dire Impulse. Excellent. Okay, and transport systems research was finished. So we now have our passenger compartments for when we're going to want them. Proximity sensors underway. I'm going to work on the countermeasures and target tracking to help our military ships next. And they want us to retrofit a bunch of stuff. I think we're set on that for the moment. We got some friends coming our way. Independent traders. And hyperspace technology has been discovered, allowing our starships to travel faster than light. This momentous discovery means we can finally leave our own solar system and travel to faraway stars, truly exploring the galaxy. We have a new scientist, Randul Nasuri, so we'll need to look into what they're capable of doing. But we need to exploit this new capability by redesigning and building new ships with these hyperdrives. Indeed, we do. We have 3 ship designs now that are going to need warp drives, starting with the Surveyor. Notice that it's got the range of over twice the system diameter, thanks to the fuel cells that we've improved. But that whole paradigm is about to get shoved out the airlock as we add on a warp bubble generator, which switches our range measurement to sectors. That's what it's going to be for the rest of the game. You may recall from the beginning of the series, we have a galaxy of 10 by 10 sectors. So less than half a sector, not that impressive, but it's a start. We also have a power issue. If we take a look at our components here, 2,000 is the speed for our warp generator, which crushes our current speed. But at the same time, it's very wimpy compared to what the later warp generators will be able to do. The energy usage is very high, as you can see, much more than we currently have to reach that. And then the jump time, typically about 18 seconds for it to power up. So we'll definitely need to add some more energy to do this. And this is one of the reasons why it's very important to always build big. Bigger is always better with ship designs in distant worlds, because the same warp bubble generator, and therefore the same power required for it, will apply regardless of the size of the ship. Just like one layer of armor is as effective on a 50 size ship as a size 500 ship. Now obviously elements like the Hab and Life scale, and there's some scaling with the thrusters as well, because they're not as effective on a larger ship because of the mass they've got to push around. It is still the case that with a lot of these other elements that don't scale, that means the larger the ship is, the greater proportion of it isn't going to be taken up in these basic necessities, and you can cram on more weapons or whatever else you want in there. It's just a more efficient way to go about building. We are not going to care nearly as much about cruise engines anymore, because we are going to want to be traveling most of the time at warp. So I can take off some of these. My goal is to maintain about 15 cruise speed and about 10 degrees turn rate. I want to have at least some more importance put into that. But the main thing I want here is a bunch of more fuel. As in, as much as we can cram on this ship before it reaches the size limit. So we'll definitely need to add on another Hab and Life. And alright, now our engine power is getting a bit low, so we'll throw some more of that on. And then some more fuel. And so on until we reach our capacity, which I think we're about there. Okay, we've got 2 more units of space. Let's go and throw on one more directional thruster, perhaps. It'll help us turn a little bit better. But we're at the max, and we have 1.9 sectors. That's a pretty solid start for us. We'll work on improving this as our components are becoming more advanced through the research. But we're at about 97-98% of the max speed of the warp drive. So now that we have an idea of what we're doing there, we'll take our engineer and apply a fairly similar set of instructions. We're definitely not going to want anywhere near all these thrusters on now that you have warp drive, but again, more reactors. We'll definitely want to max this one out all the way since we're not staring at a size limitation here. And we'll throw on some more directional thrusters. We also have a specific target in terms of range, because we want to match this to the civilian freighters, which at this particular level are going to be at about 0.35 to 0.4 sectors. And you wouldn't know that unless you'd experimented and taken a look at them. But given that, if we have about 0.5 sectors, that should give us enough range to go as far as they're going to go, and also have some time on station to do our building. So we'll knock off some of our fuel cells. About that should be good. Still have our cargo bays, etc. And then we can probably knock off one more thruster. I think that's going to be okay. Let's see, we'll knock off a hab and a life. There we go. And if I knock off one more, yeah, I can probably get away with that as well. So this has actually shrunk quite a bit. It's a more sleeker, somewhat slimmed down engineer that we have in place. And then our frigate. Let's take a look at you. Now, these are a little more complicated because we still have to care about our conventional drives. It's not enough to get somewhere. We have to be able to fight effectively once we show up. Once again, go most of the way on the speed here. And then range is a little bit more of a thorny question on these. I'm going to go with sort of in between where I've got the construction ships and where I have the explorers, because we want them to be able to get there, be able to burn a bunch of fuel fighting, and then hopefully be able to get back without running out of fuel, at least in the middle of the fight. So if I go with a little bit over 1 sector worth of range, that's probably useful. We're going to need a bunch of fuel, though, in order to get there. Okay, maybe about there. We can use that as our point. And, oh, look, we're exactly at our size limit right now. Do we want to change anything? You know, how do we feel about the amount of missiles we have versus the engines? That's something we can tweak back and forth. I'd really like to keep this turn rate up to about 15 degrees. So that's really going to help us get into combat effectively. I really don't want to reduce the cruise speed. I'm going to drop one of these. And if I do that, that should also give me enough space to just fit one of these on. Okay, it's got 15 degrees, 22 speed, the 3 missiles. There's nothing in here that I feel I really want to sacrifice, but it's really a balancing point. You know, how much protection do you have? Weapons, you know, your maneuverability, your speed. You can't fire your weapons when you're at warp, so we don't have to worry about adding that into our energy output here or anything. And notice that the 130 energy we have, our engines aren't going to even get close to that. So at this point in the technological development, it's the warp drive that's just sucking up a ton of energy. So now let's get some of these things built. I'm going to go back to our ships and bases screen here. And if we have the construction yards screen here that we're showing, it's a little bit, I would say, non-intuitive, but it includes all of your construction ships and all of your bases. So we can find all of that stuff here. We're just going to grab the construction ships themselves. And I really like retrofitting this way, just grabbing all of them of a specific category and say, okay, you become this. We will take our military ships, all of our frigates, and then we'll grab our exploration ships as well. So the only minor quibble I would make here is I just wish they had like a just construction ships and then a construction bases type of breakdown. But I mean, there's lots of selections, so that's probably arguably being at least a little bit on the picky side. And now we've got all of those building, and we're just going to wait for that to finish before we go any further. Let's see what our spaceport thinks about the operations. Okay, 1 frigate's done. Murderous Fang Buccaneers have sold our contact details to the Ancient Guardians. That will happen every time you achieve warp capability. Somebody will do that. Okay. We have one of our construction ships is finished. So let's see about getting you put to work here. Now, where do we want to go? Well, there's one place in particular that I noticed that I wanted to hit. And I think it's one of the moons over here. They've taken, you know, Kerbis 8. But this right here, the Nataran Incense and the Osalia, that's a good chance to get a couple of resources we don't already have. And in the current situation, we should be able to get there fairly quickly. We'll get a chance to see just how quickly in a bit once they gather up their resources. Okay, and we've retrofitted for a construction ship. Okay, the Kerbis Pride is ready. Now, where do I want to send you, I wonder? Could go anywhere. But we're going to come up to this gas giant, which has more Castellan but also helium. That's being used in some of the components we're building. We don't have a source of that yet. So again, I'm just trying to branch out to good locations that have something that we need. Make sure we make that a gas mining station. Okay, now our exploration ships are finished. And they are warp capable. So I'm going to have one of them. You are going to just explore the rest of Kerbis. But the other one, the Dire Impulse, well, you're going to do something else. Let's zoom out further than we've zoomed out before. Beyond Kerbis. Okay, so this is our sector, the F5 sector. We know it's the F5 sector because we've been told so, but also along the edges, they've got these numbers and the alphabetical, and so we can sort of centralize. And this is our range. This gives you an idea of what part of the galaxy we can reach. Not a ton of it, but more than we have been to before for sure. So these are what we've discovered in terms of locations of pirate bases. We'll deal with that at another time. But what we're going to want you to do once you are ready is to just gradually move out. Now this green area is our territory. That is the area that other factions, the pirates could care less, but other Empire factions agree belongs to the Akuros. And of course we don't know any other empires, so that's where we are for now. What we're going to do here is just tell them to explore this because it is the nearest system to us for the time being. And then we'll return to our regularly scheduled operations. One of our ships has engaged its hyperdrive, allowing us to travel faster than light for the very first time. Distances that previously took months to traverse can now be covered nearly instantly. Next up is the stars. And we're also receiving reports that at the time of this hyperjump, unusual sensor readings were reported at Kerbis 11. Maybe we should send a ship to investigate. Well, that doesn't sound very good. And if we take a look down here at Kerbis 11, let's see what we find. We have visitors. Giant Kaltors. These are another space creature, but they're worse than the slugs. And we're going to want to give them a piece of our mind. So this is why we built all of our ships ahead of time. And now, if you please, make them go away. Now, one of the civilians is coming down here. And it's worth noting when you... yes, Giant Kaltor encountered. Space monster near Kerbis 11. This fearsome beast lives in the cold vacuum of space and attacks any passing ships. Bears an uncanny resemblance to monsters described in ancient legends that descended from the sky to consume all in their path. Well, we're not going to steer clear of them. We're going to try to eliminate them. But they're coming out here after us now. And yeah, that's not looking too good. And notice the sort of spread pattern here. When you do a warp jump, you don't arrive on the location. You arrive like in a radius around it. That's one of the reasons why the speed and turning rate are important. Okay, you escaped. And now we're firing off our missiles. Now, just like the space slugs, if we lose ships to these, then they get stronger by feeding on us. You can see this is not looking great over here. Okay, well, we've got one of them down now, though. And now all of you, hit the next target. If you would, please. Alright, colony income level is up. That's good. And we're hitting these. At least to some degree. You see, we're taking some serious damage here. Okay, there's another one down, though. Hit the third one, please. You're about done. You have 38 damaged. You have no operational hyperdrive. You are in some serious trouble. Okay, but we did eliminate all of the Giant Kaltors, so that went pretty well. What we're going to want to do now is we're going to need to bring everybody back and repair and refuel them. But we're actually going to need help from one of the construction ships to get that one frigate underway. So that's going to be a necessity. And right now, most of them are retrofitting, but the conspicuous rover has nothing to do. So you can be our wonderful individual to come out here and repair this, and then it will be able to come back. So all of that will work out well. So we have taken our first steps beyond Kerbis. There is much more to do. We have more mining to do. We have more types of stations. Couldn't get to this time. We'll be working on those in the next session. But there is a whole galaxy out there for us to explore, and the Akuros are ready to take that step. As always, I'm very interested in what all of you are thinking about this series so far. Leave your feedback in the comments below. And if you're interested in seeing more of this series, please subscribe and click the bell icon so that YouTube will notify you when the next one is uploaded. Thanks for watching, and Distant Worlds will be back soon.